Not everyone. So by now, I'm sure most, if not all of you, are aware that Sidney Prescott, Neve Campbell, is coming back for Scream 7. And also, Kevin Williamson, the original creator, is coming back to direct this film. Now, there's obviously a million ways that they could explore this. There's a ton of ways that they could go about this. There are plenty of rabbit holes that we're definitely going to go down between now and the release of this film. But one thing that is kind of on the table now, and very likely, whether I want to admit it or not. And it is kind of frustrating. And personally, I hope that they don't do this, but it just, given the circumstances, it makes a lot of sense that Stu Macher will return in Scream 7. Now, look, this is just a thought. I don't know this for certain, but I wouldn't be shocked if in a month, 2 months, 7 months, whatever from now, we get rumors and murmurs that, hey, Stu is back. And then we go see the film in a year or whatever, and turns out Stu is back. Couple reasons. One, Kevin Williamson's original idea was to have Stu Macher return for Scream 3. Obviously, they ended up scrapping that, going a different direction. But it depends on what the plan is here, right? Is this film going to be taking place after Scream? Are they going to do like the retcon route? Are they going to have a continuation and maybe incorporate Stu somehow? Could they pick up after maybe Scream 3 and Stu is still around and they kind of pick up a different timeline? We don't know the details or direction in which they plan on going yet. So it is very possible that they go an old school direction and bring back a fan favorite in Matthew Lillard, Stu Macher. Now, look, if you're familiar with me, you're familiar with this channel, you know how I feel about Stu and returning Stu. Look, I love Stu as a character. He's one of my favorite characters in the entire franchise. I love Matthew Lillard as an actor and as a person. The dude is just solid. But look, his moment came, and I don't need to keep rehashing old characters and bringing guys back from the dead and, trying to justify. It's so much to explain, right? Like, where's this dude been for the last 30 years by the time we get Scream 7? It's like, dude, this guy just what? He was in a hole and no one ever mentioned him. No one ever talked to him. When all these other killers run around, no one ever went and like hit him up and was like, hey, dude, like, any thoughts on what's going on here? Like, there's just so many different things and directions in which they could go. I would just prefer them do anything else other than bringing back Stu. Now, look, story, direction, you do it in a proper manner, you can make anything work. But my whole thing is like, it's kind of one of those things. It's just let it live in the past, right? Because it's like, then what's next? Like, what else are we doing? Right? Like, even the Kirby thing. At least that was a little more ominous, right? It was left purposely on like a cliffhanger for her character. But even then, I wasn't like super stoked Kirby was back like some, because it's just kind of like, just let the past be the past. Like, can't we just continue to tell creative stories and go creative directions? But another big reason why I think Stu Macher could make sense to return, again, whether I like it or not, is they are in a rough situation, right? They clearly went the Sidney route, and Neve herself said basically like, hey, like they asked me in the most respectful way possible, which signals to me money. That was the whole dispute and the whole reason she didn't come for Scream 6, right? Was money dispute. So my guess is they were like, hey, we are desperate now, name your price. And they paid her whatever she wanted. And they are now in scramble mode in a lot of ways, but they were able to secure Sidney, right? So there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of excitement. How do you continue to drive that narrative and kind of make up for just the chaos that has gone on? You tease a guy like a Stu Macher and you get fandom excited. And even people like myself who aren't in the camp of wanting Stu Macher to return, guess what? We're all going to be curious and we're all going to want to see anyway, right? Like, if they make the announcement Stu Macher is going to be in the upcoming Scream film, guess what? I'm still going to go watch it. I still want to see how they incorporated it. My problem is I just have concerns on how they approach it. But again, it just depends on where does this fit in the timeline. Like if this is Scream 7 in the sense of like Scream 7 and it's like the time, like Sam and everything, they're wherever, like they're abroad or something like that, and Sidney's in it on her own, and it's like Stu, like to me that's a little silly. It's just like, again, where's this dude been? And now you got to basically, my problem with incorporating Stu is you're going to have to make an essential entire film centered around Stu and his return. Because you can't just, like, what are you going to do? You're just going to, in dialogue, in like 3 minutes of dialogue, just explain everything? No, like, there's just going to be so many questions and so many things that are going to need to tie in that I just think you're going to have to spend a good majority of a film making it make sense. Well, you don't have the core four. Now it's just a Sidney-centric film. You could spend the whole movie making Stu make sense. So that's why I'm kind of like, okay, like, I guess, again, personally, I would like just a fresh story, fresh take with Sidney Prescott. Don't make it about her brother's cousin's nephew's uncle. Like, just, I don't care what, it could be something as simple as like a crazed fan that just wants to be the one to kill Sidney. I don't care. I just don't want the same rehash. Even the Stu Macher thing, to me, you're just kind of going through the same rehash. You're kind of just going in the same old re-dug up stories, right? But you kind of look at the pieces here and it's like, well, you could do an entire movie to make it make sense. You're going to have a Sidney-centric film. Kevin Williamson is returning and he's going to be directing it. Now, he isn't writing, but you got to imagine that they're going to have some sort of, I'm sure Kevin Williamson's gonna have notes and all kinds of stuff to kind of fill in. Radio Silence is supposed to be executive producers on it. There's a lot. There's a lot of hands and cooks in the kitchen. So, I don't know. We'll see. Again, personally, I hope that they don't do it. But look, I pride myself in being honest and you know, speaking in, you know, as much of truth as possible. And I think the truth is that Stu Macher makes a lot of sense now. I don't think it makes sense from just the timeline perspective, but again, where does this fall in the timeline? If this is, you know, shortly after Scream 2 or Scream 3, like let's say they keep the original trilogy intact, right? And Sam and everything, that was just kind of like its own thing. And this is kind of, let's say, like a Scream 4, then maybe you can make the connection easier. And you just kind of have this retcon thing, and you kind of had Stu, like everyone returns to Woodsboro. Maybe you have Dewey back, and it's just kind of like picking up from after Scream 3. You know, Sidney's living her best life. Stu gets out of prison. Maybe Dewey hits up Sidney and is like, hey, Stu's out of prison. You know, maybe they don't even make him the bad guy, right? What if he is kind of like the Cotton, where it's like, is he the bad guy? Is he not the bad guy? Like, and maybe Stu's actually reformed and he's trying to help and stuff. Or maybe that's what's happening and then you have the big twist, right? Maybe he really is involved and Sidney and everybody thinks he's not. And then, surprise, Sid. Like, I don't know. I just think if you're going to bring Stu back, you should make him the bad guy, right? I would like the twist of like, everybody thinks it's not him. And he spends the whole movie kind of convincing everybody and maybe even helping to track down maybe he even just like uncovers a ghost face and kills one. Or maybe it's like a group that he's like, you know, like they kind of do like a hybrid version of what they originally wanted to do for Scream 3, where it's kind of this cult-like thing. And maybe Stu is the mastermind at the helm, but they kind of, you know, they're not directly connected to Stu, so they're not aware that Stu is involved. And maybe they even try to kill Stu, and so that way it makes everything kind of believable. Maybe Stu takes one of them out, earns everybody's trust. And you know, I don't know, maybe I'll expand on that a little more, but you get my point. Like, there's a million things that you could do with Stu. And the only reason I think like now it would okay from a standpoint, again, me personally, I think you should just go a different direction. But if it is something that they do plan on doing, I do think that now would be the best time out of any, given the circumstances of just how everything kind of fell apart for Scream 7. You have Sidney back. It's going to be a Sidney-centric film. and you could spin the whole film putting the pieces together to make it make sense, right? You could even, have a different timeline, whatever. So if you were ever going to do it, in my opinion, now is the time to do it. Otherwise, don't ever do it. And personally, if I'm being honest, I think if it doesn't happen, it's never going to happen. I think if it's ever going to happen, it's going to happen in Scream 7. If it doesn't happen in Scream 7, I just do not see a scenario where it ends up happening in like a Scream 8 or 9 or anything like that. I think this is their last chance. I think everything is kind of lined up perfectly for it. The need to change the narrative and the conversation, the need for a box office draw, all of those things, plus the way that like studios and stuff just keep like bringing back the old characters. I think that if you were ever going to do this, now's the time to do it. Again, I don't personally want it. I don't really like the idea, but look, good writing, good storytelling, good directing can solve a lot of things, right? If you can make it make sense, then sure. But anyways, always, this is a discussion. I pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? Do you think, this is probably the time that Stu returns, if any? Do you think, no, keep Stu as far away as possible? Are you kind of in the same mindset as me, is like, just let the dead stay dead type thing? Again, how your favorite thoughts are, love to hear it. Let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Lets me enjoy these types of videos. Truly appreciate it. Not subscribed to the channel, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.